There he is.
Good evening, ladies.
Good evening. Good evening, Rabbi.
Thank God. Okay, here we go. Okay, it looks like we're on Gimel. So it says in Gimel like this from the Torah. It says, "En omdim leitpalel ela mitoch halacha psuka." Right? Yeah, we talked about this a little bit. That person, the Torah. We read the Torah. That you should learn something simple before the halacha, before the prayers, not something too heavy, not something too argumentative. Not something straightforward. Things like this material, which is straightforward. So, and we said, right, the reason is because it's going to distract you. If you get into something heavy, that can already like throw you off. So, says Bet Yosef regarding that, and omdim leitpalel, lo mitoch din. He brings the Gemara, right, there, Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. As we mentioned, right, you shouldn't stand to pray from din, right, which means that bet din. You shouldn't do a bet din before. Also not from halacha, ela mitoch halacha psuka, right? So what do we do? Halacha psuka. What does that mean? Something which is straightforward. Straightforward halacha. No machloket, no issues, right? No bet Yosef, 100 opinions, this opinion, that opinion, right? We don't want that. Rashi explains, halacha psuka shena tzricha iyun, right? So that means it doesn't require much research, right? It's straightforward. Shelo yeh meharher ba b'tfilato. Why is that? Because what's going to be, right? That he's going to be thinking about it when he's praying. Oh yeah, well, yeah, maybe it's not like that. Maybe it's like this, and yeah, this rabbi said like that. That rabbi said like this. So he's going on and thinking about this while he prays, which is, means that he's getting distracted from the prayers. There's something really funny, by the way. I heard one time that I read in a certain book that talked about the Arizal, So it says there that what happened was that the Arizal was living in Mitzrayim. He was in Egypt, right? And what happened was that he came to Eretz Israel in the end. And so over there, he came to the city of Tzfat, which was at that time the Torah center of the country. All the big rabbis were there, So what happened was that he met up there with Maran Bet Yosef, who was also there, right? So the Arizal Maran met up. It's a whole story, by the way, how they met up and whatever, that they say that Maran, he wanted to learn Kabbalah from the Arizal, but every time he would come to the class, he would fall asleep. Right? So he asked the Arizal, why am I falling asleep every time I come to your class? Are you that boring? What, you're such a boring rabbi? What's going on? He didn't say it that way, but I'm joking. But so he tells him, he says, no, he says, you're not meant to learn my Kabbalah in this generation. He says, in this lifetime, in this Gilgul, he told him, he said, your job is not to learn Kabbalah from me. Your job is to write, these halachic works, Bet Yosef, Shulchan Aruch, Bedek Habayit, Kesef Mishnah, right? So that's your job. So don't come to my class, don't do me any favors. Don't come to my class to sleep over there. Go back and do your job, and be happy and healthy. That's what I thought. So why do I share that with you? So what happened was that when the Arizal came to Tzfat to live there, there were several synagogues over there. So which one did he choose to pray in? He chose to pray in the synagogue of Maran Bet Yosef. He was there. He came to the right shul. He came to the right place, right? Right. All the action was there. So he comes over there. He prays over there, right? So one time, what happened was that there's a rule like this in halakha. Maybe we're going to get to it later on. We're going to talk about that. But the rule is like this, that when there's a rabbi in the shul, the rabbi of the community, whatever it is, so if he, is praying a little bit late, the community is supposed to wait for him until he finishes. It's kavod, it's the honor of the rabbi, whatever, right? Whatever. Right? So they honor him like that by waiting for him. So what happened was that one time, Maran Bet Yosef, he prayed very long, and people were like waiting, like what's going on? So the Arizal, was there at the minyan. So he tells him, he says, don't wait for the rabbi. He tells him, start now. So they asked him, they said to the Arizal, they said, but Rabbi, isn't it halakha? You have to wait for the rabbi of the shul. You have to wait for him till he finishes. Why are you telling us to start? So he answered them something funny. He had Ruach HaKodesh, he was a big man. So the Arizal tells him like this. He says, yeah, but he says that only applies, when he's praying, but he says the rabbi is not praying. He says right now he's thinking about Torah. He's got some things in his head, and about some Torah things. So he says he's not praying. He's just thinking about Torah. So he says you can start because of that. He says we don't wait for somebody who's thinking about Torah. We wait for somebody who's praying. So that's a funny story. But anyway, why do I mention that over here? Because same thing, right? That's what shows you that sometimes, rabbis especially, they have this issue where they're learning Torah scholars, they tend to when they start praying, their mind wanders into the Torah, topics that they're learning. So, they get distracted. It's very natural. This is exactly what we're talking about here. The same idea. So that's why they tell you, don't think about deep subjects, where there's a lot of issues going on. Just learn something simple before the prayers. Okay, very good. That's the idea. So let's see what else we got here. There seems to be another piece. Yeah, one more piece here. So it says, Yerushalmi, it says over there, Rabbi Yirmiyah Omer. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Lo ya'amod adam litpalel, the person shouldn't pray, ela, unless what? Mitoch halakha, right? So he says you should be learning halakha. So, right, but didn't we just say that you shouldn't do halakha? So the answer is, right, that he's talking about the simple halakha, something which is straightforward. That you can do. So he says the Rosh brings this down. So there's really no dispute over here, right? One is talking about simple halakha, straightforward. The other one is talking about something where there's disputes going on there. Machloket. Okay, very good. So let's see Shulchan Aruch. Yes. So said Shulchan Aruch, En omdim litpalel mitoch din, right? As we said, you shouldn't pray after you do like a bet din. V'lo mitoch halakha shelo yeh libot tarud ba, right? And also not from some halakha, which is like complicated, whatever, something which has a lot of opinions going on. Ela mitoch halakha psuka. So what did you do? Something simple, right? Straightforward, as we said. So says the Ramah here, Hagar, v'hainu nami kemo mitoch simcha. So he says that the same thing is, what we already mentioned, right? That a person should pray while he's, joyous. Right. So what does that mean? When he learns halakha, that brings him joy. So that's good, and you can nothing brings you joy like learning Torah. That's why on Tisha B'Av, coming up now, right, in 2 weeks or so, Tisha B'Av, or less than 2 weeks, right? On Tisha B'Av, we can't learn Torah. Why? Because Torah gives you simcha. This is the reason why we can't learn Torah on Tisha B'Av. So what did I tell you on Tisha B'Av? Learn only sad things. You're allowed to learn sad things, like laws of Avelut, mourning, blah, 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 things like that, right? The Sefer of Eov, which is all like a tragedy, tragic stuff. Or, there are parts of also Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu, that are very sad about the destruction of the temple. So things like that you can do on Tisha B'Av because they're sad, but things which, are normal Torah topics, you should try to avoid them on Tisha B'Av, right? You have to avoid them. Okay, very good. So that's the story there. So he brings that verse, right? Ki pikudei Adonai yesharim mesamchei lev. This is right. What does it say in Tehillim in Yutet? That the laws of God are give you simcha, they give you joy. Right. So that's why we all like to learn Bet Yosef Shulchan Aruch because it gives you joy to learn halakha. That's the idea. Okay, so that's Gimel. Let's go to Daled. As we already said, right? It says in Masechet Brachot that since the temple was destroyed, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, is only found in a place where they learn halakha. That's what it says, right? Also, we say in the prayers every day, something from the words of Chazal. It says, right? What does that mean? A person learns halachot every day, he's assured to be a member of the world to come. So you see from there, right? Hashem loves halachot. So make him happy, and learn halachot. What's the problem? Make your creator happy. Okay, good. Very good. So let's go to Daled. So we already said right in the tour last week we learned that a person is doing public works, right, which are for the community, communal works. It's considered to be like he's learning halakha also regarding this. Gam ze Yerushalmi, it's also in Yerushalmi. Katav Arosh, that says the Rosh Sham, right? So it was written down. That's the source. And it goes on. Mash Katav Rabbeinu sheyesh mefarshim, that which Rabbeinu said, right? The tour, that there are some who say, Oto linyan she'en tzarich lipsok kadei litpalel. Some say that means that you don't need to stop doing that before you pray because it's considered to be like the same as learning a straightforward halakha. So that's what it comes up from Rambam. He says, Perek Vav in Milchot Tefillah, laws of Tefillah. Also Samag, Siman Yutet. Okay. Very good. That's the end of the Bet Yosef. Same. Okay, yeah. That's the end of the chapter. So we'll do a Shulchan Aruch and then go to the next chapter. So it says in Shulchan Aruch, "Ha'osek b'tzorkei tzibur ke'osek b'torah dameh." Right, a person is doing communal, activity. It's considered to be like learning Torah. Perush, right? So what does that mean? That means that you should try to, if you can do that before you pray, it's going to be you're going to be in a good state of mind like that. Shagam zu simcha hi lo, because it's also joy. It's joyous. Then he says that he's working in public communal affairs, right? Some explain differently, right? That they say what it means is that you don't need to stop and pray, right? If you're doing something communal. So what does that mean? First, finish what you're doing, and then later on, right, you can pray later on. You don't have to stop because it's considered to be something crucial since it's for the community. Okay, very good. Very simple. Two ways of explaining it. So now we'll go to 94. Chapter 94. It says in the Tur, right? As we said already, that when a person gets up to pray, he should turn to the east. We probably did this already, right? We already passed this. 1 second. Oh. Yeah, okay, so we'll go to 95. So here he says like this, he should have his 2 feet, right, straight, one next to the other. But it says, because it says regarding the angels that they have a straight foot. What does that mean? That they're straight, like, so we want to be similar to them. We want to be like them, the angels, and therefore we put our feet straight ahead. Put them together and straight. Metargaminan, so we don't want them crooked, right? All kinds of stuff. So it says Metargaminan, they translate that, V'raglehen regel kavanin. Right? So in the Targum, in the Aramaic, it says that we're talking about their legs are aligned, right? One parallel to the other. Okay. So it says, Yerushalmi zeh sheomed betfilah tzarich leashvot raglav. Rabbi Levi, Rabbi Simon, Kemalachi Asharet, right? So, like they said, it's like the angels. So same thing, right? Yerushalmi is pretty much the same as the our Talmud, telling you the same thing. Put your feet straight because you want to look like the angels. Tichtiv, as it says in the pasuk, Raglehem regel yeshara, right? Just like we just saw now. Okay. And another thing is that it says Kohanim, also like the priests, right? Dichtiv lo ta'aleh b'ma'alot shaya kohanim holchim ekev b'tzad gudal. Because it says regarding the Kohanim that they shouldn't go up on the stairs of the altar, taking big steps, So what they should do is like go straight and small steps. Kilu raglehem shavin zeh lazeh, like their feet are like parallel to each other, equal. But tzarich rosho. Also, it says he has to cover his head, me'at. Right, not cover his head, but here it means to bend down a little bit, to bend his head down a little bit. So what does that mean? You shouldn't have his head straight up, like some kind of a, arrogant person. Rather, it should be a little bit down, like humility, humble. Sheyu enav lemata. So what does that mean? His eyes should be facing down. La'aretz, right, to the ground. Shneimar, as it says in the verse, V'ayu enai b'libi sham. It says, my eyes and my heart will be there. All the days, right? What is it talking about? Hashem says about the temple, it's going to be like that. So he says, we're praying towards the temple. So therefore, he should put his eyes down, right? Corresponding to it, right? Towards it. So it's considered to be like we're standing inside there, in the temple, mitpalim, and praying there. But he says in his heart, he should be directed upwards, right? What does that mean? Upwards? Towards the heavens, right? Towards God. Shemar, as it says in the pasuk, right? Nisa levavenu el kapayim, el b'shamayim, right? So it says that our hearts are going towards God, upwards. That's what it says in the verse here. So then he goes on to say, okay, well, it's a small chapter. So I'll just stop there and we'll do Beit Yosef. It's almost finished here. All right, let's do Beit Yosef. Yeah. So says Beit Yosef, V'chaven raglav ze etzel ze, right? He should have his, he brings it to, right, that it should be straight, your feet should be straight. Perek kama de brachot, where is that brought down? First perek of brachot, ad yud amud bet, am Rabbi Yosef bar Chanina. And this rabbi says, Mishum Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the name of this rabbi, Hamitpalel tzarich shichaven et raglav, person who prays has to have his feet straight, as we said, right? Shnimar, as it says in Yechezkel, v'raglehem regel yeshara. Their feet are straight, the angels, right? Pirash Rashi explains, v'raglehem regel yeshara nir'im keregel echad. So what does that mean? It looks like it's 1 foot because they're all aligned together, right? Like straight ahead, parallel to each other. Okay. Katab Rabbeinu Yonah, says Rabbeinu Yonah, Klomar, it means to say, you should connect your feet also. They should be also touching each other, connected. Right? And it should be like, it should look like you have 1 foot because they're all together and straight. Okay, good. So then he goes on, Mashkatav, Rabbeinu Yerushalmi, he brings Yerushalmi, he has to put his feet straight, as it says. Rabbi Levi and Rabbi Simon, these 2 rabbis, one said like the angels. Katvo Sham Rabbeinu Yonah, right? Rabbeinu Yonah also brought that down. Katav Talmud Shelano. So he says, but our Talmud, Sober Keman de Amar, he holds like the one who says, Kemalachim, like the angels. Kilkach says, therefore, he has to, straighten his feet, one next to the other. It should look like 1 foot. Well, if he says, according to this, this is Rabbeinu, the tour, he really didn't need to read the right Yerushalmi. This Yerushalmi. Why? Because it's the same as the Babli, right? It's the same meaning, as I told you right before. There's no difference between the Babli and the Yerushalmi. It's all the same. So then why did you need to bring both of them, right? What's the point? What are you trying to teach us there? And he asks, so he says, therefore, he says, it seems Shabbeinu Sover that the tour holds that our Talmud is not so clear that he should straighten his feet. Aglab Kama, right? Efshar It's possible, he says, that Kohanim Kamar. Right, so it's possible that he's talking about the Kohanim. The Ekev B'tzad Godal, right? Man Nami B'raglav Mechuvanim Mikre. Because when you have one foot besides the other and taking small steps, that's also called that they're straight. Right? When Mikom Makom, he says, nevertheless, since the custom of the world is like that, lechaven raglehem, to straighten their feet, kamalachim, like the angels. Havale leRabbeinu. So therefore, he says, Rabbeinu lichtov. He should have written the Ama Dabar Keman de Amar, that people are accustomed, like the one that says, like malachim, like angels. Rabbeinu lo chashash l'divri Rabbeinu Yonah. So he says the Torah wasn't really concerned about the words of Rabbeinu Yonah, but only min haga olam, and also not the custom. So he says, on the contrary, it implies from his words, there that he holds Keman de Amar, according to one who says Kohanim, like Kohanim, right? Not like the angels. Because he paskins kivate b'siman tzadikei. That's the way he paskins in chapter 98. Katav, he writes over there, ve'ashvat raglaim kikohanim b'shat ha'avodah. They should straighten their feet, right? Like the Kohanim, the time of the services. But he says we can push that out and say, even according to one who says kamalachim, like angels, kamar, even if he said like that opinion, he didn't really, wasn't paying attention. He wasn't so specific. Legavna de chibon raglaim, regarding the to have the feet straight, parallel. Rather, he means to say, that which you need to straighten your feet, to have them aligned properly. You want to look like the Kohanim. At the time they're doing the service. He says, however, right? Each one has a different kind of alignment there, right? The Kohanim have one type of alignment, and the angels have something else. What's the difference? The angels have like 1 foot, everything together, everything even. But the Kohanim are like 1 foot in front of the other, like small steps, baby steps. That's the difference between one and the other. Okay, goes on, Beit Yosef. Ramash Katav, regarding that which he said, Rabbeinu Keru Raglahem Shavin Zet Zet, that they should be like equal one to the other, their feet. Katav Rabbeinu Gadol Mariav. Says this rabbi, Perush Shehare Bechan Lo Ayu Shavim Ela Nir'eh. So he says here they're not really equal. Rather, it seems Keru Hem Shavim, like they're equal. It looks like they're equal, but they're not. The Al Kol Panim says, nevertheless, Halashon Megumgam, says the language is not clear. Shen Bekan Shivui, it's not really equal. So is that which I wrote close by, this will be already, right, this problem will be reconciled, whatever. Katab od Rabbeinu Yonah, so it says, that which Rabbeinu Yonah wrote, he wrote also furthermore, some say also, it says some have the custom to put little space by the toes. Why? Because it's written in Yechezkel, Aleph, Kaf Raglehem Kechaf Regel Egel, that their feet are like the foot of the calf. Ve'en ze klum, says that's nothing. Sharei b'Talmud, because in the Talmud, lo izkiro, it didn't mention it there. Lo ela shechaven otam, they should just straighten them. Ve'yisamechem be'inyan, they should have together, parallel. Sheidamu lechad, that they should look like they're one. That's the end of it. So he says, what's the reason why we have to straighten our feet like that together, right, parallel? So it seems to be the feet, since he's now getting ready to talk with the Shekhinah, with the divine presence, he has to remove all the foreign thoughts in his in his body. From his heart, so So now he has to look like an angel. What does that mean? That just like angels don't have any foreign thoughts, so also he shouldn't have. Rabbeinu Gadol Manyav says this Rabbi Katav. Tam, he wrote the reason, he wrote a different reason. שהוא רמז שנסתלק ממנו התנועה לברוח, לא להשיג שום חפץ בלעדי השם. So he says that the movement was removed from him to run away, to go and catch up to something besides God. Okay, a little bit strange language there, but let's see Shulchan Aruch. Okay. Says Shulchan Aruch, יכוון רגליו זה אצל זה בכיוון, right? So as we said, a person should have his feet, right, aligned straight when he prays. כאילו אינם אלא אחד, like as if it's one, right? So totally like parallel, aligned together. להידמות למלאכים. What's the reason why? Because we want to resemble the angels. תכתיבם, because it says regarding them, רגליהם רגל ישרה, right? They're straight, their feet are straight. כלומר, right, what does that mean? רגליהם נראים כרגל אחד. It looks like they have one foot. Good. So it says in parentheses, ויש אומרים, some say, כשעומד להתפלל, when he stands to pray, ילך לפניו ג' פסיעות. So he should like move up 3 steps, right, before he prays. That's what we do, right, nowadays. That's a custom, right? דרך קרוב והגשה, קירוב והגשה. So it's like you're coming close to Hashem, So you go in, move in there. 3 steps. The דבר שצריך לעשות, right? You got to do something. Okay, so that's what we do, right? But the way we do it nowadays is like we step back and then forward, So we do like 2 things. Okay. Very good. Let's go to Bet. So says Shulchan Aruch. Let's see Bet Yosef if there's anything here. Nothing. Okay. Says Shulchan Aruch. צריך שיחוף לו ראשו מעט. You also should bend your head a little bit, right? In other words, you want to be looking down a little bit. שיהיו עיניו למטה לארץ. That means that is, they should be looking down towards the ground. Right? ויחשוב כאילו עומד בבית המקדש. And he should think like he's standing in the temple, right? ובליבו יכוון למעלה לשמיים. But his heart should be directed towards God, towards the heavens. Okay, very interesting, by the way, because, in the Zohar I saw recently regarding this issue, he says something important there, which is that when a person is praying Amidah, says Zohar Kadosh, that he shouldn't be looking around, with his eyes. What's the reason why? Because since he's praying Amidah, the Shekhinah is there with him, and he's gazing at the Shekhinah. Not allowed to do that, right? So once I saw that, I was very, very careful, not to open my eyes when I pray. So, how does that fit into this halakha over here, right? So Shulchan Aruch is not telling you to close your eyes. What he's telling you is to look down. Right? So which one is better? To close your eyes or to look down? What should you do? So the truth is, that according to Kabbalah, closing your eyes is better. Because this way you're not looking at the Shekhinah. But I think, if I remember correctly, okay, the Zohar even says, right, that over there, that if you're not looking around, it's okay, like you're just looking down. Because the Shekhinah is not there, when you're looking down. When you're looking around, that's where it is. Okay? So the truth is, it seems like there's no dispute between the Zohar and the Shulchan Aruch. Like you can do either way, either look down or just to close your eyes altogether. What about if a person doesn't know by heart the Amidah, right? So he needs to look in the Siddur, right? So what should you do? So the truth is, you're allowed to look in the Siddur if you don't know by heart the Amidah. And what's the reason why? Because you're looking down also, into the Siddur. You shouldn't be looking around, all over the place. That's not allowed to do. Right? So therefore, proper thing to do is either to close your eyes or just look down, onto the floor or look into your Siddur. This is the only proper way to do it. But looking around, no good, right? So looking here, looking there, looking at the walls, looking at the ceiling, that we don't want that. I hope you're not looking at your phone. Unless you have a Siddur in there. Some phones have a Siddur. That's okay. I'm not talking about that. I have a Siddur on my phone. I don't use it much, but just in case, I have it. So, yeah, that's good. Good to have that. So, yeah, that's what we're saying over here. And also, your heart should be directed, towards the heavens. And you should be thinking that you're in the temple, right? Okay, very good. So this is all psychological things, to make you concentrate better. That's what it's all about. Very nice. By the way, it is written in several places that looking at the Shekhinah can make you go blind, because God forbid, lose your vision. So because of that, you have to be careful. Don't look in places where the Shekhinah is there. Don't gaze in those places. Not a good idea, because it can cause problems. There's all kinds of, by the way, issues about this that are talked about in the Torah. For instance, they say, right, why did Yitzchak go blind before he passed away? Because he gazed at the Shekhinah. When was that? When he was being offered as a sacrifice, right? On Har Moriah, on the Temple Mount, he gazed at the Shekhinah there, and that's what damaged his eyes. That's one opinion. There's also other opinions, right? About why he lost his vision. So, yeah, person has to be careful, even a stronger case regarding that, what it is? Where a person, is going to the shul, and they're doing Birkat HaKohanim, right? So he's not supposed to look at their hands, because the hands of the Kohanim, when they're doing Birkat HaKohanim, they have the Shekhinah there. So therefore, what should you do? You should look down, right? Don't look at their hands. And that's why when they do Birkat HaKohanim, the Kohanim, what they do is they cover the hands with a talit. So this way, even if you look at them, you're not looking at their hands, Some of these Kohanim, they don't know what they're doing. So what happens is that they use a talit, but they don't cover their hands. Their hands are uncovered. So what's the point of holding a talit if you're not covering your hands? I tell them sometimes, you got to cover your hands. That's the whole point. But the truth is, honestly, why do we do this? So we don't want to look at the hands of the Kohanim. As we say, right, the Shekhinah is there. But that only really applies, the Gemara says, when you're in the temple over there, the Shekhinah is there. But in the Bet Knesset, the Shekhinah is not there really, in the hands of the Kohanim. So then why do we why do we do that? Because to remember the halakha for the temple. When the temple is rebuilt, we will know over there, we'll remember over there not to look at the hands of the Kohanim. So, God forbid, we shouldn't lose our vision, right? Because the Shekhinah can make somebody blind. Guessing at the Shekhinah, lo aleinu. Okay, so you got to be careful about that. Very good. Okay, so let's go on. Going to Gimel. So we're doing Shulchan Aruch here. It says, Maniach yado al libo kefutin. Oh, wait, we need to do the tour here, maybe. 1 second. Yeah, let's first do the tour. So the tour says like this. Katav Rambam. Says the Rambam, Maniach yado al libo kefutin. What does that mean? When a person is praying Amidah, he should have his hands on his heart, right? On his chest, placed there. So how you do it? The right hand is going to be over the left hand, right? Like this, right? Right hand over left hand, and you put it on your chest. That's the way it should be, right? But the thing is like this, okay? Sometimes you can't do that. Why? Because if you're using a siddur, there's no way to do it. You know what I mean? So therefore, if you need to pray from a siddur, then forget about that, right? Skip it, right? Just hold your siddur, and that's okay, right? You can't do everything. You can't have everything. You can't have everything your way. You know, so sometimes you have to make a compromise. But if you know the Amidah by heart, so then you should do it, right? Put your hands like that on your chest, like this. And that's the way you should pray, because that's the way of humility, the way of supplication. This is the reason why they do it. Okay, good. But the heart, right, should be, as we said, towards the heavens. That's something else. We're not talking about that. Right. So then it says, "V'omed ke'eved lifnei rabo." So why does he do that? Why does he put his hands like that? Because he's standing like a slave in front of the master. You know, that's how a slave stands in front of the master. Right? What does that mean? Ve'ira, like with fear and trepidation. Ufachad, right? Ve'lo yaniach yadav al chalatzav. So he says, what you shouldn't do. Don't place your hands on your chalatzav. Right, chalatzav means like your hips. You shouldn't place your hands like down low over there. Yeah, like a person, you know, when he walks, right? That's what he means. Like, you know, how do you walk? You place your hands like, you know, down, right? Down below. Around the hip area, around your belt. So he says, when you pray, your hand shouldn't be down there. Very interesting. Okay, that's the end of the tour. So let's go to Bet Yosef. Yeah, there's no Bet Yosef on this. So we're going to do Shulchan Aruch. Let's see what we got. Okay, so it says in Shulchan Aruch, Maniach yado al libo kefutin, right? As we said, he should place his hands on his heart, right? Like, you know, the right hand over the left hand. Like, you know, as if he was like chained, you know, like he was handcuffed, one next to the other. So he's going to stand like a slave in front of the master. Right? With fear, trepidation. But don't place your hands on your hips, right? Here he tells you, right? What's the reason? Why? Because it's arrogant, like to, you know, to stand in front of Hashem like that. As if, like, you know, you're like his equal, you know, like you're his friend. Not a good idea to give that right impression. So therefore, he says, don't do that. So it always, when I see this halakha, always comes up in my mind something interesting, something really funny. One time I went to the Kotel, over there in Israel, in Jerusalem, where the Temple Mount is there, Kotel. So I went there to pray, and I used to go there quite often when I lived there. So what do you call it? Especially in the beginning, I was there like almost every day. So what do you call it? So I saw one guy, he seems like he was mentally disturbed. So he's praying, to God, right next to the kotel, right next to the wall. So how is he praying? Not like this, right? So, as we said, right? Supplication, humility, like we just described. And he's also he doesn't have his hands on his hips either. So what was he doing? This is what he was doing. So funny. I was like, but it was sad but funny. He was like talking like this, like to Hashem, He must have been mentally ill, this guy, But it was just funny to look at it, It was like he was trying to be like the boss, talking like he's the boss. That was really funny, very comical. Okay, Hashem should help them, these people who are mentally ill. What can you do? That's the way it is, But it just shows, that a person has to be in the right state of mind, frame of mind, when he prays. Frame of mind, which was supplication, humility, right? These kinds of things. Okay, very good. So that's the Shulchan Aruch. We got one more here. First, we'll look at the Bet Yosef. There's a Bet Yosef here. So it says Bet Yosef, Katav Tumat Adeshen, right? It's written over there in Tumat Adeshen. The Shapi Odame Liachid Lechavenet Raglav. So he says it seems like it's okay for an individual to straighten his feet at B'shah Sheomer Kedusha, when he says Kedusha. Ima Shliach Tzibur with the Chazan together. Nikadesh, since we're using the word Nikadesh, right? We're going to sanctify you at Shimcha, your name, Keshim Shemakdishin, just like we sanctify Oto B'Shmei Marom, just like they're sanctifying in the heavens. V'Shamayim Makdishin B'Regel Yeshara. When it says when it comes to in heaven, they sanctify him with a straight foot, as we said, right? The angels, straight and like 1 foot. Yesh Tanu Leidamot Lahem. So he says, therefore, we should try to be similar to them, right? To resemble them. Like whatever we can do, as much as we can do. So he says that's not really like arrogant or conceited to do that. Right? It's also not. He says it's not also like ignorance. Rather, he says it's actually a very good quality to do it this way. That's what he says in Tumat Adeshen. Very interesting. Oh. Okay, there's a little bit more Bet Yosef here, which I didn't see. I didn't catch it, but we'll read it now. So it says like this, also Bet Yosef, right? Regarding what the Torah said, to bend your head down a little bit, right? What's the source for that? So he says, Perek mitzvot chalitza, right over there in Yevamot, Kuf Hei Amud Bet, Katvu Arif, and the Rif brings it down, Berachot Chav Bet Amud Bet, Be'arosh also, Bepek En Amdein over there in Brachot, right? Katuv Echad Omer, one verse says, where is this in Kings, right? The first book of Kings. That my heart and my eyes should be there. This is all the days. Hashem says this about the temple. When Shlomo Melech, right, the King Solomon, he built the temple. And one verse says, right? We should raise our hearts to the heavens, to God. So how do we reconcile that? בגמרא, it says in Gemara, שמתפלל צריך ליתן עיניו למטה. So what that means is like this, right? As we already mentioned, a person who prays has to, right, put his eyes down, as we said, right? He shouldn't be looking around, looking up. But his heart should be directed upwards. That's the idea. In order that we should fulfill the verses, halal, these two verses, there shouldn't be any contradiction with the discrepancy. Halalu. Ve'im tomar. If you're going to tell me, he says, Hechi aminan, how do we say shetzarich shiten alav lemata? How is it that we say a person should be looking down when he prays, right? But we said over there in this other Gemara, but didn't we already just say a while ago that a person should pray in a house where there's windows there, right? In a synagogue which has windows. But didn't you tell me I have to look down? So then what does it help me to have windows, right? If I'm looking down. Right? So since this rabbi answers that question, so because of this, the Talmidim Rabbeinu, they answered, the Tama de beit sheyesh bo chalonot, then why do we say you should have windows? Eno ela kedei sheyeh beit metukan be'avir tov. The reason is because he says there should be good air, right? Good air quality when you open the windows, right? Get some fresh air there. Aval Rashi, but it says according to Rashi, he says something else. Rashi says that they help him to concentrate when there's windows there. So then, how is that? If you're telling me to look down, what's the point of it? Right. So he says, because he looks upwards. The Rabbi Rashi says, his heart is humbled by that. So it's difficult on the Rashi. There's a discrepancy here. So he says, therefore, that we can answer like this. Shemash katav shistakel klape shamayim. That which it says, right? You should stare towards the heavens. When he has those windows. We're not trying to say that his eyes should be always facing, right, upwards during the prayers. Right. So it says really what it means to say is that, if by chance, right, your eyes have look up, if it happens to be like that, then your heart will be humbled by looking outside. Interesting. Then he goes down a bit, Yosef, here a little bit more. Katav Rambam, right? As we always mention, the Rambam says you should put your hands on your chest, as we said, right? Like your hand locked, whatever, hand chained, right, handcuffed. The Tamo, it says over there, the Rambam says the reason is b'daminan, since we said Perek Kama de Shabbat, first Perek of Shabbat, they say, Rava Shade Gilime Upachar Yade Umatzle. Right, so Rabbi, he would do like that, right? That he would pray like that with his hands in a humble position like that, as we mentioned, like a slave in front of his master. That was Rabashi said. That I saw Rav Kana, ki ika tzara be'alma. He said, right, that when there's suffering in the world, right, shade grima ukafakafar yadeh. So then he would, right, pray like that in supplication. But when there's peace in the world, and then he would wear nice clothing, right? We already mentioned this before. Depends on the situation that we're living in, right? Where if there's war, there's peace, prosperity, right? Depression, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so אמר היקרון לקראת לאוחד ישראל. משמע דלעולם הווה כפר ידי ולא היה משנה מצערה לשלמה, אלא בעניין המלבושים בלבד. So he says, from there you see that he only changes clothing, right? But in terms of his demeanor, the way he positions his hands, he didn't change it. Mash katab sheyu haymanit ala smalit. And that which we said, right, that the right hand should be on top of the left hand. Why is that? Misrad and Afshek katab. So this is just his own logic, right? His own thinking there. That's, so it could be that this symbolizes, we call it subjugating the evil inclination, that the right is on top of the left. Why is that? Because the right side, as we said, right, is the good side. It is the side of chesed, of kindness. And the left is the side of din, which is the Yetzer Hara, the side of judgment. So therefore, we want the right to be on the top of the left. That's always the case, by the way, When you have one hand on top of the other, or one foot on top of the other, the right should be always on top, because, right, that means that the side of kindness is winning over the side of judgment. That's what he's saying over here. Good. Shehu nirmaz b'tzad smol. As we said, right, this evil inclination is alluded by the left side, right? That's why all the lefties, in politics, all the bad guys are lefties, because they come from the side of the Satan, right? These people, the left, they're in the left. That's why we call them the left. Okay, so that's the way it is. Katav Rabbeinu Hagadol, Mari Avohav, says, right, this rabbi again, Shakol Kaminhag HaMakom, says everything goes according to the custom of the place. Shesh Mekomot Shechovkin Ayad Be'azro Yamin Tachat Atzil Samol. There are places where they do this positioning of the hands differently, The small Tachat Atzil Yamin. Some people do it like this, some people do it like that, right? The different ways of arranging the hands one on top of the other. So what does that mean? He says there are places where the right is under the left. And the left is under the right. In other words, depending on if you're talking about the hands or the elbows, whatever. Anyway, right, it says, when you're talking with the king, right? The question is, when you talk with the king in that country that you live in, how do you, position your hands? What's the proper demeanor, right? So he says, this is the way of Edom, right? Which is Europe, right? Right? He says, in Europe, that's the way they do it. That's the way they talk to the kings. So they don't do this supplicatory kind of position, like the Rambam says. So there are some places where they, grasp one hand with the other with their fingers. Some what they do is they put their hands behind, right? You've seen this, right? As respect to the teacher, right? Sometimes the students put their hands behind. This is an old custom today. We don't see this much, right? Nobody respects the teachers anymore today, right? Everybody, right, abuses the teachers today. Unfortunately, right? That's the way it is. Nobody gets any respect, right? Not the teachers, not the rabbis. Nobody gets any respect. There are some people, by the way, Baruch Hashem, they still respect rabbis and teachers. But, things are not as good as they used to be, as you know. Okay, so, anyway, right? So that's the way it is in the Arab countries, he says, right? That's the way they do it. Right? So the reason why they do it that way, he says, because that alludes to the fact that, they're like helpless without his help, the help of the king. Okay, so then he goes on. What the Rambam says, he says, he shouldn't put his hands on his hips, as we said, right? If sharp, it's possible, he says, it could be his own thinking. Because it's like arrogant there, conceited. He says it's possible that he explains from this Gemara. All right, another thing, right? Another thing, which this is something really funny. I was looking for this, by the way, for a long time. I saw it somewhere and then I couldn't find it. But here he brings it, right? That there's also another position, right? Bodily position, which shows arrogance. You know what that is? when the person puts his hands on his chin, right? So what does that mean? Like, this kind of guy, these guys, right? They're always rubbing their chin like this. So that shows that he's arrogant, like he thinks he's very smart, He thinks he's like really clever, That's why he always rubs his chin. That's what it says in Gemara, right? Where is this Gemara? Brachot Chavdalet, Amud Bet, right? It's also in the tour brought down, somewhere in the tour. So anyway, Shulchan Aruch, right? So like it says in Aruch, Shepiresh lo yaniach yado al tzido santero. So maybe let's see how much we got here. Yeah, we're almost done, so I guess we'll just finish it off. Just 2 minutes here. Right, so it says in the Aruch, as we said, that a person shouldn't put his hand on his chin, right? Kemo setaro, kemo tzela, ve'anun yetera, klomar, shelo yaniach yadav al kislav, shenir'eh she'omed bekalut, right? So he says something else, right? That it doesn't mean, he explains it, it doesn't mean your chin, it means like on your side. Like where your kidneys are, like people walk. Because it seems like it's like he's being lightheaded. There's also different text also. Right. So it's right over there in chapter 97. Okay, so we'll do Shulchan Aruch and we're done. Baruch Hashem. Okay. So it says here in the Shulchan Aruch, right, that what? A person, right? Good idea to have his feet straight, right? As we said, together, like the angels. So it says also good to have this when he's doing kedusha, right? When he's answering the kedusha with the chazan. So over there also he should try to have his feet straight, right, and together, just like he does in the Amidah. Very good. Okay, we're finished the chapter. Baruch Hashem. Very nice. Thanks for coming tonight. Be blessed with wealth, health, happiness. Hashem should bring us to the building of the Bet HaMikdash, right? B'mehera v'yameinu, instead of these sad times. It's 3 weeks that we're going through. Whoever needs a refuah shlema, should have a refuah shlema. And be holy and happy. And see you tomorrow, Mr. Hashem. Chazak Baruch.
Amen. Thank you.
Baruch Tiyeh.